Welcome to my ranking video for all world bosses in the new Astro Bot game. Woohoo! This game is awesome. Who doesn't love it? If you don't love it, leave right now. So what makes a good boss fight? Obviously we need some good responsive gameplay. The boss needs to be a bit difficult but not too difficult, and there need to be some kind of attack patterns you can learn as a player. We need a cool design that sets the boss apart from all the other enemies in the game, and maybe also a cool soundtrack. So beware of spoilers, but here's a close look at all the 6 boss we're looking at. We got Mighty Chewy the gorilla, Wako Tako the octopus, Lady Venomara, and Mechalleon, and Falcon Mcfly, and finally Space Bully Nebulax, that green little sucker. Many of you may not know that some of these bosses has already appeared before in the Astro Bot franchise. The gorilla, the octopus, the bird and the green alien has already appeared in Astro Bot Rescue Mission VR back in 2018 on the PS4 system. It's super nostalgic for anyone who played the original to see these bosses in action once again. And actually some of the music and attack patterns are the same as the original boss fights. But this is not what we're going to talk about anymore in this video. We are going to rank the bosses in order and see which is the best. And of course, not any of these bosses are bad or bad design or anything. So let's say we rate the bosses from the least best to the very best. So without further ado, let's take a look at number 6. We got Mighty Chewy the gorilla. Mighty Chewy is also the first world boss of Astro Bot Rescue Mission VR back on PS4, and he returns to be the first boss in this game as well. Mighty Chewy is at the 6th spot because it's a very cool boss fight, and the intro where you jump from building to building as they crash down, I loved every second of it, but it's just not as cool as the other boss fights. Not because it's bad in any way, I gotta point out, but the stakes didn't feel as high as the other boss fights. And of course, as the game goes on, the boss fights gets more intense and more complicated, the attack patterns and everything. But very cool to see him again. Very fun that they incorporated the new bulldog backpack in order to counter these attacks, and the part where he bites the building is also very cool because it's also a reference to his attack patterns back in the original game Rescue Mission VR. A simple but very cool boss fight. Next up at spot number 5 we got the octopus, Wako Tako. Yet again a very cool boss, like every other boss in this game. But I have to put it at spot number 5 because the first phase of this boss fight, before the ocean split apart, is quite simple to dodge his attack and counter his punches. But as soon as the next phase starts, I was like, holy crap, this is insane. It was way better than the first part. It felt very cool and a huge upgrade from the previous game. But still, the other boss fights are way cooler. I do want to quickly point out that the boss fights from Rescue Mission VR, these are not the exact same enemies or bosses. Team Asobi told in an interview that these are actually the siblings or brothers from the previous bosses. That's why they look different, sound different and all that. So let's take a look at spot number 4. Spot number 4 we got Falcon Mcfly. Well, this boss fight, it starts very cool. You clashing into Falcon Mcfly mid-air and land on his belly in order to fight him. Very cool, very epic, very big scale. But also I think this is probably one of the easiest boss fights. Just like the gorilla, the octopus was a bit more difficult, but this one is one of the easiest boss fights. The attack where he shoots kind of bullets out of his mouth, easy just to curl up in a ball and protect yourself. but the way you have to like spin the bolts off and ground pound onto his wings, very cool, great idea, and then you incorporate different attacks. The music is also pretty cool in this boss fight, just like any of the other bosses. But I didn't smile as much playing this boss fight. I enjoyed the others more, the top 3. But good boss fight, but a bit too easy, and it is pretty late in the game he appears. He's the 5th out of 6 bosses. He should be one of the most difficult ones. We're now heading into the top 3. At spot number 3 we got Space Bully Nebulax, which is actually the final boss of the game. And you might wonder why the hell is he not number 1? Well, there is a couple of reasons. Yes, he's a very cool boss. His design is cool, his attacks is also kind of random. Which attacks you get, you have to play him multiple times in order to see all of his attacks. He seems not as menacing as the previous alien in Rescue Mission VR. And that's only because I played the earlier game. If you didn't play the first game, then you probably won't think about it. But his design is not as scary, and his voice has been changed quite a bit. So he sounds a bit more cute or silly now, where before he was much more scary and a lot more difficult to defeat. In Rescue Mission VR it took me many attempts to complete him without taking damage. In this game I completed him on first try without taking damage. It's also one of the easier boss fights in the game, if you ask me. This one and Falcon Mcfly was the easiest bosses to complete, and also of course the gorilla is quite easy as well. But overall a very fun boss. All of his special attacks and him spinning the UFO and you to hit something good, and then he pulls it over to the skull icon and throw enemies at you, it was very cool. It made me laugh a couple of times. And I do want to point out, I did not take the space battle part into consideration for this boss fight, as this is obviously the coolest moment in the entire game. So I didn't take it into consideration, and this is why this boss was not number 1. And now for the final 2. At spot number 2 we got the Snake Lady Venomara. This boss really took me by surprise. Well, first it sounded like an anime villain, her voice, and the design is badass. With the tail spinning thingy, and it's just scary. Yay! This is only the 3rd world boss in the game, and I felt it was way more difficult to learn the attack patterns than, for example, Falcon Mcfly, which is the 5th world boss. The attacks are very creative, very unique, and there's a lot of them. And yeah, and to start with hitting the rings on the tail, I didn't know what to do. It was very cool, very clever. I really enjoyed this boss fight. Also a cool detail that makes this boss fight like progressively more intense is that every time you like damage her, she will destroy the arena and make it even smaller. I love it. And the very best part of this boss fight that really sold me, and why this is also at spot number 2, it comes right here. Are you kidding me? Sliding down a freaking hill while still fighting? This is nuts! And if you don't agree, that's okay. But also remember, by the end of the boss fight, she spits out a chest which contains Nathan Drake. What the hell? And you will probably guessed it by now. At spot number 1, we got Chameleon. Woohoo! Just look at him. How can you not like that little guy? This boss by far was the most difficult for me to complete without taking any damage. And it took me the most attempts to actually just defeat it. The timing with the fireballs, the saw blades he spits out, everything, it can prove to be very difficult. And also look at this, you running into his mouth to punch him in. That's cool, and how he changed color in between the phases as it gets more intense and more difficult. I love it. Just look how fast those blades fly, it's nuts. Ouch, kinda scary really. And also the sound design for this boss, just try to take a listen to this. He sounds a bit like Dio from JoJo, don't you think? Yet another creative boss fight, like every other boss in this game. All the bosses are amazing, everything. None of the bosses are bad in any way. Like every other game, it's a matter of personal opinion. And this was mine. This was my personal top 6 for all 6 world bosses in Astro Bot 2024. What do you think about the boss fights? Do you agree or do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, play nice. This is just for fun. We all love Astro Bot and love to play this game. I hope you enjoyed my ranking and all my other Astro Bot videos on the channel. If you want more in the future, please like, comment and subscribe.